Welcome to our I Am Workshop Conversation Series, a transformative journey designed to inspire self-discovery and ignite your creative spirit. With your hosts, Ana Maria Davalos, Maria Lanes, and Maclovia Martel. Today's guest, artist, astrologer, and energetic healer, Sofia Rebadeneira, who has a connection with animals. Sofia, thank you for being here on I Am Conversations with us. We really, really appreciate you.
Thank you for coming.
Sofia, can you tell us about a transformative experience or experiences that have changed your life into who you are today?
And yeah, well, that's a really big question. I think that my answer really shapes how I am feeling in the moment you ask me that question. But one thing that I feel deeply grateful for today that a few years ago I wasn't really grateful about because it was very hard to understand and digest was my parents' divorce. I feel like that more than what a kid or a person understands about marriage and divorce, it had way more to do with my identity that I ever imagined. So I feel like that really got me deep into questions of who I am, who am I, what do I believe in, what is actually chosen by me, or what was given to me by my parents, or the system I grew up in, because a lot of things stopped making sense to me because I started occupying a different role in society. Who knows why? Like I didn't really knew why, but that also opened up questions, and I feel like that was definitely who I was. I got into a very deep depression too, so I'm very grateful for that depression. I feel like, of course, in that moment I wasn't grateful about that. But I feel like that's where I learned about alchemy, and that's where I connected with who I am beyond that identity my parents gave me, or that I developed in order to get validation of my parents, because as a kid, that's how you survive. So you start shaping your personality and your desire and your ways of moving in the world according to la mirada del otro, like
how others seeing you.
Yeah, like the
how you're perceived
from your parents. I feel like that's what shapes your love language in a way, and then that's traduced to your friends in school, your community, your neighborhood, society, your country, culture, how you relate with all of that. So when that happened, I didn't know who I was. I was lost. And that was the beginning, I guess.
How was your life before the divorce?
Perfect. I feel I lived in a bubble, like in a very privileged, protected time and space, not only because of the age I had, because when you're a child or an adolescent, you don't hold the responsibilities of an adult yet. You're not aware of the problems of the world, because adults are assuming responsibility. So I feel like also the way the kind of relationships I had were way more simple. You just had to like that guy, and if he likes you back, there is nothing that could go wrong there, because
everything was magical.
Yeah.
So it's almost like you were You had that life, it sort of died. And then you were reborn into another person.
However, there was always some uncomfort that I always had inside me, that I understood that better when I learned about my astrology. That explained my way of isolating from people and finding refuge in animals, in horses and dogs and nature, because that was what felt safe for me. So
Did you have this attachment with animals before this?
I started riding horses before I learned how to walk. So though they were an extension of me, basically. I did find this spiritual connection that I didn't know that that was what I was experiencing with animals, that I couldn't connect with anything similar to that during my depression or this period where my home stopped existing in my country home, because I was in college when my parents separated. So I didn't feel it as much until I came back to Ecuador. I went to school in Savannah, in Georgia. So kind of like life gave me those breakthroughs in pieces. But that specific event of the divorce kind of like triggered deep stuff.
You took the deep dive with that.
Right.
How
You
old
were
were you?
not aware of all the darkness inside. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess the animals were the only constant.
Yeah, exactly. And I used to be a professional horseback rider during the last years of school. And I practiced endurance and show jumping. Those were like the two sports that I was really into. And I had one event that was also very transformative. I didn't understand that until I started therapy, though. So I completely repressed that until years later. But I had a brain stroke at the age of 17 in a competition that was to qualify to the Bolivarian Games. That in that time, that was like what mattered the most to me, because it was like the first filter in order to get to the Olympics. And you know what competitive shows you that is successful is getting to those places. So that was like super important. And that happened in that selection, like the competition that defined who would get in the team in order to go to the Bolivarian Games. And that was in my last day of school, when I was in 12th grade, a little bit before I went to college. I remember that I had a chance to drop 2 obstacles and I would still get into the team, because I had already completed what I needed to go to the Bolivarian Games, and I had dropped 1 obstacle and I had 1 obstacle left before finishing the field. My dad says that I wasn't riding as I always do. I don't remember, honestly. But I do remember that when I was approaching the last obstacle, I didn't calculate the distance as accurate as I should have. And it was like a very big paralela, we call it in Spanish. I don't know the word in English for that. But I dropped that and I almost crashed all of the obstacle. But I remembered that I had to cross the finish line in order to get into the team. So I was like, I'm gonna hold my horse's neck.
Oh my God.
But when route finished, I wasn't conscious. Like I fainted. And when I woke up, I don't remember, but my coach said that I was speaking in English. So that's when they got scared. And the coach that I had in that time was never worried about his students when they fail because he would think it's lámpara.
He was like, just, she's making a show. She's just pretending.
So when he got scared, it was like something really bad happened. And apparently when I fell, I didn't use my hands to protect myself. So I fainted in the air before getting any physical impact in my body. So that's why when I fell, I was already out. When people kind of like got scared, and when I woke up, I was speaking in English, and the stroke happened in a part of my brain that impacted my view, my sight.
Right.
So I saw double for a few months. And I remember that the week after that, I had to travel to Argentina because I had the South American Championship of Young Riders. And I felt so many times in my life that was normal in my life. So I was like, okay, I'll go to the hospital on Sunday. They'll let me out and I'll travel on Monday. Like, I have time. I have 1 week, And when I got to the ambulance, I was with my dad, and I started waking up, and my dad started explaining to me what was going on, trying to keep me awake because it isn't a good idea to let someone fall asleep.
Yeah.
So he was telling me, like, you were in a competition in Arrayanes, that was the club where the competition was, but you're okay, we're going to the hospital. And I remember, and I was like, Dad, did I cross the finish line? And he was like, that was the last thing I was like, no, I just had to cross the finish line. And so I made him call someone to see if I crossed the finish line. And actually I did. I got third in the competition that day, but of course that I wasn't aware of that to be.
Oh my God.
But legally, I finished and I was in, so nobody could kick me out of the team because I had everything I needed in order to go to the Bolivarian Games. But I was like kind of like I didn't even realize that I wasn't seeing good. I didn't realize that I was seeing double until I got to the hospital and the doctor told me what happened to me. And that's when I got scared, because when he told me that I had a stroke and un derrame, like when the blood.
Yeah, it's a stroke.
A stroke, like
a blood clot, like
a blood clot.
And so when the doctor said that, I was like, I realized that it was bigger than what I imagined. And that's when I started feeling the pain. And I realized that my head was going on a lot of pain, like my head was exploding. But I was so focused in something.
Yeah, you were with adrenaline and you were just so determined to finish the job, even if it meant that's incredible.
And that's when I realized that I wasn't seeing
straight.
I was seeing double. So I got dizzy, I started feeling sick, I started crying, and I was like, oh my God, like I'm sorry for myself. I'm sorry, Mom, because my mom was super stressed and anxious. My mom, I feel like she had a really hard time with me because I was super extreme in sports and activities. I took a lot of risks in life. And I think that was hard for her because she's super worried. So when something happened, my coach was like, don't call her mom, call her dad. And my dad was always like completely the opposite. Like nothing would alarm him. Like he would always be super stoic and under like calm. So he was able like to hold into these situations without putting more pressure in it that it already had. It's interesting because the symbolism of the eyes and not being able to see clearly repeated in my art and future experiences that I had in college. that made me realize my soul's investigation, like what I was seeking to experience in order to awaken, to open my eyes. Because I remember that when I was a kid in school, like my doodles, I would doodle in my notebooks when I got distracted from what they were teaching us. And the only way that I was able to be concentrated was when I was drawing eyes in the doodles of my notebooks. That brought me peace, and that was just a very relaxing exercise that helped me come back to myself. And also drawing horses, that was like the only thing that I knew how to draw. There's not a way of doing it, but to me that looked like a horse. So I always drew horses and eyes. So those were symbols that were very present. After this, in the end, like, just to wrap up the story, I ended up going to the Bolivarian Games. It was kind of like polemic because nobody was in alignment with that decision. My parents were judged by people, and that was the last competition I decided I would go to before going to college, because my coach tried to make me stay competing. Like, I was in the peak of my career, and to me that sport was an amazing training because I wasn't there all the time. Like, I worked a lot in order to be with my skills that right. And there was a time where I would fail of the horse every single weekend, like for at least 2 years, that I had a mare that was very hard to handle. So that for my ego, like, the humbleness that I got from that experience was like,
you were really beaten by the horse.
Yeah. And when I was riding at that level, my coach told me, like, not everyone gets there, and everyone that gets there and leaves for college or something different than this focus, you won't be able to come back to that same level. Like, and you have the skills to do this of a living. Like, so he had that conversation with me, and I processed that, and I was like, I really love this sport, and there are very good universities here in Ecuador now, that, like, why am I leaving? Like, I could stay and keep on and study too, because that wasn't a negotiable thing for my mom, especially for my parents. But my mom always wanted us to live abroad for college, and yeah, that's something that I really treasure from my grandfather in my mother's lineage, that we might go there later. But when I told my mom that, she got so pissed, and she was like, your coach has no right to get into that aspect of your life, and you are leaving because you're leaving. Like, I don't care what you think of me, you're leaving for college. And I was like, you're scared? And I was like, okay, years later, I understood, like, she wanted to get divorced, and she wouldn't have done that if I didn't leave. Which is fine. Like, in the end, I was like, oh my God, like, everything made sense, and I had to go. Like, in the end, after that, I was like, okay, I'm gonna see where I'm gonna apply. And when I saw the catalog of the college I went to, that it was SCAD, Savannah College of Art and Design, the cover of their catalog had barns and horses. Apparently, the owner of this school is passionate about horses, and they get really good scholarships for equestrian people. I didn't even had art as an elective in school, because you choose electives once you get to 10th grade. I wanted to be a veterinarian. So I had biology, psychology was always part of my life too. I had that elective, and sistemas ambientales, ecological systems. Those were my 3 electives. I didn't even think that I was creative or that I had art skills.
Yeah.
So I didn't have a art portfolio to apply. My application was horseback riding videos. And in the end, I was lucky that it was a school that really valued that skill, and I got a scholarship for that. And that was how I was able to go there. In the end, I didn't end up getting into the equestrian team in SCAD, but leaving for college was another very transformative event, because all of my identity here was grounded into this sportswoman that I was. And there in an art school, without knowing anything about art or having a skill developed in that area, I was nobody. And I was in a place that I knew nobody. So I was like, oh my God, here I'm no one. Like, in Quito, society is very different. The privilege, that bubble that I told you that I felt that I lived in before, like, didn't exist there. So I had to find other ways to connect with that energy that I spoke at the beginning. And I think art helped me a lot, prepared me to understand the symbolic language that I later deepened into astrology. Because if I didn't have that knowledge that I learned in SCAD, I wouldn't be able to understand that language later. So when I saw the list of careers that SCAD offered, the less creative one from what I knew at that point, that was nothing, was advertising. I thought that that was like the less creative thing. And I was like, no, it wasn't. It was like it challenged me to be everything: art director, designer, copywriter, producer. And I was like, okay, now what? So it really challenged me to develop all of these skills. And I feel also that's why I never define myself as a art director or copywriter. It's like, it depends what you need.
Yeah.
You what you need, and I'll tell you how I can help you building that, and we'll tag our names later. In advertising and branding, we also study archetypes. So the marketing archetypes that we use in order to build identities for brands. For example, Jeep has the archetype of the adventure, the owl that's present in, I don't know, library logos or educational things represent the wisdom. So I started studying these archetypal patterns that gave identity to brands. So that was my first contact with psychology from that perspective. And I worked in Chicago for a year after graduating from SCAD. And I remember that when I came back, like when I graduated from SCAD, the successful thing to do was to apply to an ad agency that was recognized in the US, and use my OPT because they gave you an opportunity to work with a working visa a year, and if you're lucky, 2 or 3 years. And if you're luckier, you might get sponsored a visa to stay there. So I feel like there was always this construction of success that was associated with being able to make it outside of your country. So I feel like that was also kind of like challenging for my ego in order to be able to assume what my inner wisdom was telling me that was for me. And when I came back for Christmas that year, my sister already lived in Quito. She went to school in Argentina, Buenos Aires. She lived there for 7 years. And during the time we both were living abroad was that my parents got divorced. And so when she came back, she was the first one to face reality as an adult. She was broken. She didn't know what was going on. She was having a lot of trouble. And I remember that during those vacations, when I came back, something very symbolic happened. And one of my close friends lost her brother during that summer, and that was kind of like a wake up call for me. And I wasn't feeling peace being in Chicago, living this American dream life that really felt very empty. I wanted to be with my sister. I wanted to. I needed home. I started to feel that need of building that foundation and to nurture my roots. I felt like my roots were starting to become fragile, and I was feeling empty in Chicago, even though that city taught me a lot too, because I learned a lot about solitude and winter, because here in Ecuador we don't have stations as marked as there are in the US, in Chicago. Like winter in Chicago was long and
cold
and dark and lonely, and that was the first time I started going to therapy, I remember. And I started reading this book that was, if you would ask me what book was the transformation for you, it would be an easy answer, and it would be Women Who Run with the Wolves. That book became like my Bible. I have it in my bedroom table, and it really helped me to feel grateful about being a woman, and being grateful for my body, and recognize the wisdom that there's in there that nobody taught me how to recognize. So when all of that happened, and when I started going to therapy, I started understanding things about my dreams, and I started connecting more with art. I started drawing, freelancing for artists, giving identity to their projects. So yeah, I was feeling a lot of pain too, but I feel like also the creative energy that happens when you are so fragile and sensitive.
Yeah.
Is
It's transforming.
Sometimes when you're at those deepest depressions, you don't feel like doing things, like getting out of it, but somehow you do. And when you do, you seem to learn more, have more experiences, and I think you grow more from these dark moments.
Yeah, it's an opportunity. Every dark moment is an opportunity for
growth.
And I feel like it connects you more with your feelings, and the definition of success that we are given that isn't productive, but it's actually way more productive than everything else, because the experiences you're having are actually going through what's for you, and that there's nothing more productive for your path than doing the things that you're feeling. That just
How old are you now, Sofia?
I'm 29. I'm about to.
Well, you're very advanced emotionally from when I was 29. You are. You're very in touch with your feelings and your outlook, which is beautiful.
No, and you've had a career after career, from very little. So that just talks about, what a strong personality you have and such strong focus.
Yeah. So from there, did you go into, how did you get into the astrology?
So yeah, when I that's when I decided to come back to Ecuador.
Mhm.
And the working conditions in Ecuador in comparison to the US are completely different. Like workers' reality in relation to salary and amount of work that you have to deliver is completely a different reality. And so when I came back, I started working at an ad agency that was a small boutique that they paid me the basic salary that in that time was $350 a month. And I worked way more than 8 hours and sometimes during the weekends. So
And
I
that's
did,
in Ecuador,
Yeah.
$350 a month. Oof.
yeah. And so since I didn't live with my parents because they didn't, well, my mom didn't live here in that time, and my dad had his situation in Alangasin, the farm that is out of the city. I had to pay rent with that and also learn how to manage my economy in a different way, because in the US I didn't have to question the system so much because I earned enough in order to live okay. So I was I was fine. Yeah, I was sad for this and that, but I mean, white people problems, you know.
Yeah.
It wasn't like my life was in risk or that I had trouble to get to the end of the month without being able to pay rent and being drained and not having a social life, because also the context where I grew up in was a very like privileged context. So I felt very isolated from what my friends were going through and the experiences that they were having, and they were like getting married and doing how do you say despedida de soltera, like
Oh, like the bachelor parties.
bachelor parties and all the traveling, and I felt so disconnected with that, and I had a lot of trouble being present because it costed so much money
Mhm.
that I didn't have. So I started questioning also the love and affection that I had from my relationships with my friends, because I was like, I'm not aligned with paying $50 for buying plastic to decorate all this room and then put that in the trash and not seeing it again in until the next one gets married, you know.
Mhm.
Like for me that didn't make sense, but I didn't want to be mean into like damaging their happiness, their moments that they were living, but it didn't feel authentic to me. It was hard for me to actually not criticize everything around me. So I'd rather isolate myself and find like my own healing, and that was my way in that moment to protect myself and to respect the other people to process too.
Yeah.
um and that's when I art saved me again before
Yeah.
getting to the astrology part. But I started working with a friend that he's a filmmaker and producer, that he asked me to assist him in backstage filming for films that he had to do. And because I had a camera, with my first salary in Chicago, I bought my first camera like with my own money, and I remember that gave me a lot of creative.
Outlet.
So when I started working with this friend, I realized that there was another reality in Quito that I didn't know before, because I grew up in this bubble where everyone knew everyone, and they did the same things every weekend, and these are the places that you go to, these are the dreams that you dream,
This is the clothes you wear, this is what you say,
this is what you laugh about and what you do. I didn't engage with that anymore, or didn't feel identified with that. And then I saw like all this other world that has always been under my feet. And that's where I started to understand my rebellion, that I was repressing it. That what all of this community of artists were actually doing something with that and creating other realities with that through art. So I feel that gave me this allowance to myself in order to explore those voices that I had in my head, that before that, I guess there's this concept of the witch wound that didn't allow me to get into that. And so in the pandemic, I was living with my sister in an apartment in the city. And in the pandemic, where we had lockdowns 24/7, it was a room, an apartment this big. We were having trouble with convivencia, with
living with each other. It was too close for comfort.
Yeah. So I divorced my sister during pandemic, but I learned so much living with her, because she's a psychoanalysis professional and very passionate about psychoanalysis. So she challenged my mental skills so much while we were living with each other, because her way of like stepping into her power and arguing and building and was so grounded into concepts that actually made sense, that I started studying that language too. But my personality and creativity always pulled me towards astrology. But to me, I started like obsessing with this language, with astrology. And for my sister, it was very challenging, because I would talk about any planet in order to wanting to speak about, I don't know, my relationship with my mom, but I talked about the moon. And for her, that was escapism. So she was super angry that I would avoid that and living in this illusion. So it took me a few years to get out of the esoteric closet. And that's why I got a divorce with my sister, because I didn't know how to communicate what I was understanding.
You should have checked the stars to see when was the right day to talk to her.
Yeah, no, it didn't work. But that space, and maybe I had to be alone. I feel like silence is very
healing.
Yeah. And opens a lot of space in order to go where you usually fear get into, because of that look of the other people that you care about. And that's when I started studying astrological psychology.
Oh, wow. Astrological psychology.
I found a Colombian school that taught a year certification to learn the basics of astrological psychology and the most important concepts that you need to know in order to learn this language. And actually, this artwork is one I painted while I started studying astrological psychology. There was a Pacific manifestation in Colombia of trans people that were fighting for their rights, dancing. And that for me represented so many things that I wanted, that I felt so identified with. And yeah, that was like the beginning of a next stage of my career too, because in that time before the pandemic, I quit my job at this ad agency because it was taking more away from me than they were giving me. And I wanted to go to Nepal for volunteer work because I felt lost. I felt completely lost. I didn't know anything. I just felt terrible. And I was like, okay, maybe if I go to China, Nepal, or India,
you will be enlightened by something.
Yeah, by something. But
Eat, pray, love. It's like that movie.
You could have gone to Otavalo. I mean,
yeah, but when you don't have that identity and your roots integrated, you think that you have to go somewhere else. But that day that I was gonna buy my ticket, COVID, the first case of COVID got to Ecuador. I wasn't able to make that, and that's why I stayed. But I already quit my job, so I was freelancing, and being able to being in that situation also allowed me to start putting in practice into branding identities with this knowledge that I was gaining from my astrological formation that I was doing. So I started sharing a little bit about what I was learning to my clients and asking them if they would be open to make the conceptual exercise with their astral cards and in alignment with what's going on in the sky, in order to see their purpose, their mission, their vision, what is essential for the collective process of their company or their projects.
That's beautiful. I love it. I want it.
And what kind of information do you need for that?
It depends on the project and the person that I'm working with. I learned that not the nicest way because you can't speak with that language to people that want to sell for yesterday. They don't. How you do it? So I learned to know which tool will work with that person. But to answer the short way, I would need your date, hour, and place of birth. That allows me to pull down your astral map. If you are working with a project that already exists, like you already have a brand or a company.
Yeah, it's called I Am Conversation.
Then the date of birth of that project.
Oh, Maclovia. Okay.
So we would be able to see the astrology of I Am Conversations.
Yeah, we have to do it to test
it was
it.
like in June or something.
And there we could see, then it might be Gemini. We're having a lot of movement in Gemini this year because Uranus is doing a lot of magic there.
As long as
there's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, it's.
Was it tonight a good night for our talk?
Canceled.
It's so funny because a lot of people come to me with those kind of questions. And the astrology that I practice isn't predictive at all. But you can, like my partner of the project that I'm working in astrology, we're designing an astrological agenda for every year. So 2026 agenda, we have all the transits and the most important events of the year in that agenda. So you can have that, you can choose a good day for what you want to execute. But you know that because only you know what is it that you're looking for in that conversation. So I have it has been interesting because my partner in this project, her emphasis is in elective astrology, and elective astrology focuses in choosing the right time for something, and that works in order to build good strategies for politics and asesorando. I practiced my
consulting.
Yeah, consulting for people that have to take important decisions or that want to get married or things like that. And personally, I have a little bit of trouble working with astrology that way because to me, it becomes conditioning more than possibilitating. So I try to be very careful with that because people actually believe everything you're telling them. And sometimes I don't like that.
Yeah, because then they'll say you lied or
More
it wasn't
than that,
true or they take it disillusioned.
Yeah, all of that could happen. The purpose of astrology, from my perspective, is to giving back your power, taking back your power. And with that, it comes taking back responsibility. But I'm giving you the information. So I'm teaching you how to understand this language in order for you to make the choices that you want to make. Because sometimes when you look for someone else to tell you what to do, is when you give them the power, your power. And you can always get insights and get in touch with your intuition through conversations with your astrologer, psychology, father, mother, partner, that help you connect with your knowing, with your inner compass throughout the investigation of the symbols. But in the end, is for me essential to honor the libre albedrío, the freedom of choice of each person. Like, to me, that is sacred. So I try to be very careful with the words that I use in order to explain the energy that's available, because it could get very dogmatic without intention. Sometimes you never know what that person that's asking you that question is going through and why they need to know if they want to break up or not, or if they want to leave or stay.
Yeah, because it can change our life, the course of, just by that decision. So yeah, you have to be careful.
Where can people find out more about you?
Wow, the time flew. They can find me. I have an astrology account in Instagram that is called Casa 12, which is the 12th house of astrology, that the connection with the unconscious collective and divine intelligence and art and a few other things. But that 12th house is very special for my psychic experience. And that's why I developed that project, because it's what keeps me sane.
Also, you do energetic healing.
Yeah, that's also a really nice session to experience if you want to deepen your connection with nature and other species, because it helps us open our hearts a lot and enhance our hologram. And horses are very amazing.
How do you work with horses or animals in is it animals or just horses?
Animals. Yeah, animals, nature. Horses have a very big heart, like 5 times bigger than ours, and their hologram, their energetic field, they can perceive energy kilometers away from them. And if a horse that you're working with has like all of their basic needs covered, they can do a lot of psychic work that we can't. And they can show us where there are energy blocks that have to be moved or removed or worked, or make visible a lot of things that are invisible to us. So the sessions are basically 45 from 45 minutes to 1 hour and a half sessions, where I have a camilla, a bed,
Uh-huh.
where the person comes and we have a small conversation before getting into the session, to see if there is something specific that they want to work on, or any questions that they have, in order to get into the horse work. And then they fall asleep, and the experience is very unique.
And where's the horse? I mean, you.
All around us, all around us. Sometimes they come and they do the work and ask me to move. Sometimes they show me where I have to put my hands.
Wow.
And in nature, I can't explain. They just create a container that it feels so safe for the person to allow things to come up that they usually hide unconsciously, because they don't think the world is a safe place in order to allow that to happen.
Mhm.
But have this such a big presence, and they create this safe space without judgment, that very impressive things happen, and a lot of healing can take place there too. And they also help you put all of that energy back to the earth, because they don't have judgments, they don't have fears, they don't have expectations. They are completely in coherence with nature. So
That's beautiful.
So they are the healers.
yeah, they
And you work through them. But if we come to Ecuador, I would love to see that.
Yeah, that would be it's amazing. And then we could talk about all of their trajectory if we want to understand why they have this amazing psychic ability.
Well, we would like to do a second interview. So
I think so. And can you do
I
it with
think a
with the
second
horses?
interview and-
I want to see the horses.
delving deep into this healing of the horses with you
Yeah.
would be amazing.
That
This
would
is my horse.
he felt that he had to be in this part of the conversation.
Uh-huh.
We'll have a healing with Rico.
Rico. This is Rico. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Sophia, we are so grateful to have this interview with you, and we would love to continue it at
Yes. And Maclovia, can you do the angel card?
Oh, can I do an angel card?
Yes, please.
Abundance.
Abundance.
You want the abundance?
Yeah, of course.
Yesterday a card flew out. There's a
Ooh.
card. There goes
Okay.
a card. Hold on.
She's an expert. She's saying I'm not very good. That was great.
Well, I got two cards.
Okay.
I got let me see. Words of abundance, which says you have the ability to instantly manifest abundance by choosing powerfully positive words. Always describe your own and the world's economic situation in loving and optimistic terms, and that is what you attract for yourself and others. And moonlighting here's the other card. Wait, moonlighting, it's backwards. You can start working on your dream career part-time while keeping your other job to pay the bills. Soon your dream career will take flight and fully support you.
Wow.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. Awesome.
Thank you, Sophia.
And
yeah, you're a beautiful.
You're part of the family.
Yes, you're a very you're a light worker and a very beautiful soul.
Yes, you are.
All right.
I'm super grateful for this.